You know that feeling when you start speaking English, everything is going great, and then suddenly, silence.
Oh, yes. The mental freeze. It's like your brain is there, ready to go, but the words, they just hit a wall.
Exactly. You hit a wall. That means you suddenly stop and can't continue. Maybe because you can't think of the right word or phrase. It's frustrating, right?
It is super frustrating. And that moment, that stop sign in the middle of a sentence, is what we are focusing on today.
Welcome to the English Blend. I'm Mia.
And I'm Leo.
Today, we're diving deep into how to keep a conversation going. This is one of the biggest challenges for English learners, especially those in the A2 to B2 levels.
We want to help you move past that wall, past the silence, and just keep that English flowing. So grab your coffee, maybe a notebook, and let's get started.
Let's start with the basics, Leo. We need to talk about two very important concepts, fluency versus accuracy. People often mix these up, or they think they have to be perfect in both at the same time.
Right? It's a huge mental block. What do we mean by fluency?
When we talk about fluency, we're mostly talking about flow and speed. It's the ability to speak continuously without long pauses, so the listener can follow your idea easily. It's about communication.
Communication is key. Fluency doesn't mean you use perfect grammar every time. It means you can get your point across effectively.
That phrase, get your point across, means making sure the listener understands the main idea you're trying to share. Even if you make a small mistake with verb tense, if they understand what you mean, you succeeded.
Absolutely. Think of it like driving a car. The fluent driver gets from point A to point B smoothly, even if they occasionally forget to signal perfectly. They still arrive at the destination. Now, let's look at accuracy. Accuracy is all about the details. Accuracy focuses on correct grammar, correct vocabulary choice, and correct pronunciation of individual words.
Accuracy is important, don't get us wrong, but many students become obsessed with accuracy first. They stop every 2 words to check if their sentence structure is 100% correct.
And what happens when they do that, Mia?
The flow stops. The conversation dies. They sacrifice fluency for perfect accuracy.
Exactly. If you stop to analyze every verb tense or every preposition, the conversation partner loses interest and you lose momentum. You might be accurate, but you aren't communicating effectively because the interruption is so long.
We need to remember that fluency equals communication, not perfection. That's our mantra for today. It's okay to make mistakes if you are moving forward.
Let's explore why grammar specifically blocks fluency so often. We call this paralysis by analysis.
I love that phrase. Paralysis by analysis. It sounds exactly like what happens. You are paralyzed, meaning you can't move, because you are analyzing too much.
Imagine you are trying to tell a colleague about a new project at work. You start a sentence in the past perfect tense because the action happened before another past action, but then you suddenly panic. Wait, is it had gone or went? Should I use has been going?
And while you are having this 3-second grammar debate inside your head, the colleague is just waiting. Maybe they look away, or maybe they start fiddling with their phone.
The silence feels so long, and then you think, oh no, I ruined it. I can't speak English. That thought is the real block.
It's the internal editor. Everyone has one, even native speakers. But for learners, the internal editor is working overtime. It's constantly saying, stop, that verb is wrong, change that word.
We need to temporarily fire that internal editor. Just tell him or her to take a coffee break and come back for the homework. When you're speaking, the goal is simply to transfer the idea from your brain to the listener's brain.
Let me give you a quick story that illustrates this. Maybe a cultural note. I remember teaching a class where we had a German student and a Japanese student. Both were highly intelligent and knew all the grammar rules.
Very accurate, I bet.
Super accurate. The German student could conjugate irregular verbs perfectly. The Japanese student knew all the polite forms and particles. But they struggled to talk to each other in a natural way.
Why was that?
Because they were both waiting for the other person to finish a perfect sentence before responding. If the German student made a small mistake, the Japanese student paused, trying to mentally correct it, instead of just listening to the message.
So they were valuing the structure of the sentence over the content of the conversation. They were having an accuracy contest, not a conversation.
Exactly. One day, I changed the lesson. We talked about their favorite cafe drinks, something very relatable and everyday.
Simple stuff. Ordering coffee, chatting about the study.
Yes, and suddenly the flow improved dramatically. They realized that for simple things, it was easier to just use the phrases they already knew, the chunks, without needing to check the formal rules.
It was a relief. The pressure was off. That brings us perfectly to our practical tips. How do we actually train ourselves to stop hitting that wall and keep the flow going?
We have 3 to 5 really practical steps you can start implementing today.
Tip number 1, and this is crucial, is massive input.
Massive input means massive listening and massive reading. Think of your brain like a car's fuel tank. If the tank is empty, you can't drive far, right?
Makes sense. Listening and reading are the fuel.
When you listen a lot to podcasts like ours, to YouTube videos, to movies, you are filling that tank. You are passively collecting hundreds of phrases, sentence structures, and reactions.
And here's the key part. You are learning English without focusing on the rules. You just absorb how people actually speak.
For example, if you hear the phrase, "I'm looking forward to it," 100 times in natural contexts, your brain learns it as a unit. You don't have to construct it, I plus am plus looking plus forward plus to plus it. You just deploy the phrase.
When you are in a conversation and someone says, "I can't wait for the weekend," your brain instantly pulls out that full phrase, "I'm looking forward to it," and you respond quickly. That speed equals fluency.
So our first practical action step is to schedule at least 30 minutes of listening every day, even if you are doing something else, like commuting or washing dishes. Make it massive.
Tip number 2 builds on this. Learn in chunks. We mentioned this briefly, but it deserves a deeper explanation.
A chunk is a group of words that naturally go together. They are fixed phrases, idioms, common collocations, or common responses.
Stop learning vocabulary as single, isolated words. If you learn the word huge, also learn the chunks huge mistake, huge success, a huge amount of pressure.
When you learn phrases, you don't have to pause in the middle of a sentence to find the right adjective. Instead of pausing and thinking, what kind of mistake did I make? Big? Large? Your brain immediately offers the chunk. I made a huge mistake.
This is how native speakers speak. We don't build sentences word by word. We connect chunks and phrases together. It makes conversation much faster.
Think about small talk at the cafe. When the barista asks, "How are you doing today?" you don't construct the answer, you use a chunk. "I'm great, thanks. You?" If you learn "I'm great, thanks. You?" as one unit, you reduce the thinking time from 5 seconds down to half a second.
And that half-second reduction is the secret to sounding fluent.
Let's move to tip number 3. This is a technique called the 3-second rule.
I love the 3-second rule. It's powerful for overcoming that paralyzing anxiety.
Here's how it works. When someone asks you a question, or when you need to start a sentence, you must start talking within 3 seconds.
3 seconds. Not 5, not 10, 3. Even if you don't have the perfect answer, you must make a sound.
Use fillers. That's why we use them so much. Fillers are your best friends.
Fillers include things like, well, right? Let me see, or that's a good question.
If your colleague asks, "What do you think of the new marketing plan?" and you need time to think, don't wait in silence. Start immediately with, that's a complex question. Let me just gather my thoughts.
That sounds fluent, even though you haven't actually answered the question yet. You maintained the flow. You signaled to the listener that you heard them and are processing.
If you wait 4 or 5 seconds, the listener might think you didn't understand the question, or maybe they'll try to rephrase it, which just adds more pressure to you.
So use those 3 seconds wisely. Make a noise. If you accidentally use the wrong preposition, remember our mantra. It's not the end of the world.
That's a great phrase to explain right here. When we say, it's not the end of the world, we mean that the mistake you made is minor. It won't cause a disaster. It's a way of saying, relax, it's not that serious.
So if you use for instead of since, it's not the end of the world. The conversation continues. Your colleague understood that you meant for a long time. The most important thing is that you got your point across. Let's move to tip number 4. This is for those moments when you know you might hit a wall. Prepare conversation topics.
This sounds obvious, but many learners don't do it strategically. Think about your typical week. Who do you talk to? Where?
Maybe you talk to your boss, maybe your English-speaking neighbor, maybe the person at the library.
Write down 5 standard scenarios. For example, 1, talking about my weekend plans. 2, explaining my job to a new person. 3, complaining politely about bad service.
For each scenario, prepare 3 chunks or key sentences. Don't write a full script, just the essential building blocks. For example, explaining your job. You could prepare the chunks, I work in marketing, my main responsibility is developing content, and I love the creative side of the job. If you have those chunks ready, when someone asks, what do? You don't have to build the answer from scratch. You already have the foundation. You simply connect the prepared chunks. This dramatically increases speed and flow.
It's like having cheat sheets for the most common parts of your life. It's perfectly okay to prepare.
And our 5th, and perhaps most important practical tip, don't apologize for speaking.
Ugh, this is essential. Leo, how many times have we heard learners start a sentence with, sorry for my bad English, or I know my accent is terrible, but...
Too many times. Stop it immediately. When you apologize, you reduce your own confidence right before you need it. You set the listener up to expect mistakes. And honestly, most people don't notice or care about small errors. They just appreciate the effort.
Just speak. Be confident. If you say something wrong, correct yourself quickly or just keep going. Remember, it's not the end of the world. Your focus must be on getting your point across.
Let's spend a little more time on these 3 useful phrases we introduced today. They are essential for a fluent mindset.
The first one was hit a wall. We explained it means to suddenly stop or be unable to continue.
Imagine you are writing a very long email. You get halfway through, and suddenly you can't think of how to phrase the key conclusion. You stop writing. You hit a wall. You might need a break.
Or maybe you are studying for a difficult exam. You study for 3 hours, and then your brain just stops absorbing information. You hit a wall with your concentration. This phrase is great because it names the problem. You can even say it in English. Sorry, I think I just hit a wall with my vocabulary. That's fluent communication right there.
The next phrase was get your point across. This emphasizes the communication outcome over the grammatical process.
If you are at the airport and you are trying to explain to the agent that your luggage is missing, this is high-pressure English. You might forget the word luggage or mix up the past tense.
But if you point to the empty conveyor belt and say, my bags, they not here, airplane put them somewhere else, is that 100% accurate? No. But did you get your point across? Yes, they understood the urgency.
That's the key difference. Success is defined by communication, not perfection. The airport agent knows what to do next because they understood the message.
And finally, we have not the end of the world. We use this to minimize mistakes and reduce stress.
This phrase is useful for external situations, like if you spill coffee on your shirt. Oh no, I spilled coffee. Well, it's not the end of the world.
But it's even more powerful for internal mistakes. You caught yourself using the wrong article. Instead of panicking, you just think, mistake made. Not the end of the world. Move on.
This positive mental response is what allows you to maintain flow. If you dwell on the mistake, you lose 5 seconds of speaking time and the flow is broken. If you let it go, you maintain your 3-second rule and the conversation stays alive.
So, to recap our main ideas for keeping that conversation flowing,
First, redefine success. Focus on fluency, the flow and speed, over extreme accuracy. We want communication, not perfection. Tell that internal grammar editor to take a break.
Second, fuel your brain with massive input. Listen a lot to absorb phrases naturally.
Third, start thinking in chunks. Learn, how are you doing, as a single response unit, not 4 separate words.
Fourth, practice the 3-second rule. Don't let silence kill the momentum. Use fillers like well, and to buy time and maintain flow.
And remember our power phrases. When you stop suddenly, you hit a wall. Your main goal is to get your point across. And if you make a mistake, remember, it's not the end of the world.
Consistency is everything. Start practicing these small mental shifts today. Use these tips in your next conversation, whether it's at the study group or ordering food.
That was a great talk. We hope this episode helps you feel more confident about just speaking and less worried about perfection.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to the English Blend. Next time, we are going to look at the power of storytelling in keeping conversations exciting.
See you in the next episode of the English Blend.